Alright, in this video, we're going to look at how do you factor a trinomial when the leading coefficient is not 1. There are multiple ways you can factor. Most people teach the AC method, and there are other different ways you can do it, trial and error. But in this video, I'm going to show you a method that I like to call the shortcut method. But there are different names for it because my colleague calls it slide and divide. But whatever you want to call it, I think this is probably the easiest way to factor if you have a trinomial and the leading coefficient is not 1. So we're just going to jump in and we're going to do some examples. So I'm going to start off with example 1. We're going to factor 3x squared plus 11x plus 10. This is a algebraic expression. There's 3 terms and I want to factor this so that it's written as the product of 2 separate algebraic expressions. So what we're going to do is first we have to be able to identify A, B, and C, because I have to first multiply A times C. So A times C, 3 times 10, which is 30. And then I want to find factors of 30 that add to B, which is 11. So you want to find factors of A times C that add to B. So I just start listing factors of 30, and the first ones that come to my mind are 5 times 6. 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 plus 6 is 11, and that's the factor that I want. It just so happened to be the first ones I try. So I want the factors 5 and 6. Now, if there was no number in front, then my answer would just be x plus 5, x plus 6. However, since there is a number in front, a leading coefficient that's not 1, I have to take that number and divide it by each of those factors. So I take each factor divided by 3. So this becomes x plus 5 thirds because it can be simplified, and 6 divided by 3 is 2, and that becomes x plus 2. If I'm going on to use this to solve an equation, then I can actually stop right here and just finish solving the equation. But if I'm just factoring this, I'm not solving the equation, then you cannot leave this fraction here. You have to take this denominator here and move it to the front, and that's what my colleague calls it slide and divide, because you can slide that right there to the front. And that becomes 3x plus 5 times x plus 2. And so that's how you factor it. That's the what I like to call the shortcut method. All right, example 2, we're going to factor 8x squared minus 2x minus 1. And again, there is 3 terms. There is a leading coefficient that's not 1. So the way we factor this is we have to multiply the A and the C. So A is 8 and C is negative 1. So 8 times negative 1 is negative 8. Then you want to find factors of AC, which is negative 8, that add to B, which is negative 2. So what are numbers that multiply to give you 8? Well, 4 and 2, but you want it to be negative 8, so just stick the negative on the first one and see what you get when you add it. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. So I just so happen to get it right on the first try again. And so if there was no number in front, then these would be the factors you would want, and your answer would be x minus 4 times x plus 2. But since there is a leading coefficient, 8, you have to divide each of these by 8. Now reduce that. 4 over 8 is 1/2, and 2 over 8 is 1/4. If you're going on to solve a quadratic equation, you can leave it like that and just finish solving by setting each of those parentheses equal to 0. But if you're not going on to solve a quadratic equation, if you just want to factor, then you have to take each of these denominators and slide it to be the coefficient of the x. So this will be 2x minus 1. Take that denominator, slide it to the front, and this would be 4x plus 1. So your final answer would be 2x minus 1 times 4x plus 1. Okay, now I want you to take a moment. I want you to try this one. See if you can factor this one using the strategy that we just used, what I like to call the shortcut method. So pause the video and try it. So you should have multiplied A times C, which is 15 times negative 2, which is negative 30. Then you want to take factors of negative 30 that add to B, which in this case there is no number right there. There's an understood 1. So factors of negative 30 to add to 1. So just list the factors of negative 30. So 6 and 5 come to mind. 6 times 5, but it needs to be negative, so I'm going to stick the negative on the 6. But negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1, and I want it to be positive 1. So I'm just simply going to switch the signs on the 6 and the 5. So 6 times negative 5 is negative 30, and 6 plus negative 5 is positive 1. So if there was no number in front, 15, then my answer would just be x plus 6, x minus 5. However, since there is a coefficient of 15, I have to divide each of those factors by 15. And so then reduce it. 3 go into both of those. 3 go into 6 2 times, and 3 go into 15 5 times. And then 5 go into both of those. 5 go into 5 once, and 5 go into 15 3 times. If you're going on to solve an equation, you can leave it like that. But if you're just factoring it, you have to take these denominators and move them to the front as the coefficient of the x. So this is 5x plus 2, and this is 3x minus 1. And that's what you should have got. Did you get that right? Hopefully you got it right. If so, then now you can go back and learn how to solve equations used by factoring. If these videos are helping you, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can check out all of my math videos and hit the bell so that you'll get notifications whenever I drop a new video. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope this is helpful.